Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, and I'd like to introduce back to the show our co-host, Christy from Pack Your Pixie Dust. How are you doing today, Christy?
I am well. How are you?
Not too bad. We found kind of a middle of the road for you. It's not too late at night. It's not too early in the morning. So how are you feeling about the time tonight?
It's okay.
Sorry, this is our...
I really like our daytime recording.
This is our ongoing joke. And we've got a special guest tonight, and I know that you're excited about doing the show. We've been talking about this kind of concept for a long time, and now it's kind of coming to pass. So I'm going to let you introduce our guest tonight, Christy.
I am super excited, a little fangirling here. I reached out to Sarah of Gluten Free and Dairy Free at WDW, who she has a website that is actually that name, and she has agreed and is on the phone to talk to us about her recent Disney Cruise Line cruise. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited, and also feel a little bad because I think I'm the reason that we're doing this a little bit at night, so I appreciate that, but I'm looking forward to talking to you all today.
Darn jobs that pay the bills.
I know, man, I tell you.
And they kind of get in the way of all the cruises, doesn't it? So
that is also true.
Yeah. Well, let's just start with, how did you start your blog, Sarah? How did you get into that?
So I started my blog, oh goodness, it's going on a decade, so that is a long time. I started it in 2009. So I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and then later was also diagnosed with celiac disease. But because of the Crohn's disease, I started a gluten-free and dairy-free diet. Was a big Disney person, went to Disney all the time. I'm from Michigan originally, so Christy and I can talk the Michigan thing. Now live in Orlando, but back then I lived in Michigan, and so was going to Disney a lot. And the first time I went to Disney, I did not know what to do with special diets. And so the reason I started the blog was really just to share that with other people. I figured if I was having challenges trying to find out info, that other people would be too. And so started it from there. And yeah, it's just kind of grown and grown. And here we are almost 10 years later.
And I used Sarah's resource before my trips to Walt Disney World. So when I am trying to figure out new menus or new restaurants or just current menus and restaurants, or menus of restaurants, I go to her blog. And then there's another one, Alexis Gluten Free Adventures. Is that her website now?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I use hers as well. She had a different name, and so it's been switched over. But those were my two resources, and are my two resources for my trips to Walt Disney World, especially after I was first diagnosed.
Now, those are good resources, your blog, Sarah, and the other blog. Is it pretty easy on Disney's website to find out information for those who have food allergies as to what it's available? Or does that make sense what I'm saying? Is it pretty easy to do that?
It's a yes and no, and I think Christy would probably say that too. And so one of the things that they do is they do give you a lot of kind of high-level information, like here's what you could do if you have a special dietary need. You could contact Disney, know that all the restaurants can accommodate certain things, that they do have allergy-friendly menus. The challenge is that Disney doesn't, although they are starting to do it a little bit more now, but they don't typically make their allergy-friendly resources like menus available to people. And that's just because of partially a liability issue. They want to make sure that you're really talking to someone when you go to a restaurant. So I would say they have a good starting point, but that going back to a lot of the blogs like mine and Alexis's are really good resources because we go a lot more into detail. We'll provide things like current reviews, tips and tricks, those menus that aren't necessarily easily available online. We'll put those up there too. So it's kind of a good mix to start at Disney's websites, like their official stuff, and then go to other people's blogs to kind of get some more additional information too.
I agree.
Well, let's kind of segue over to Cruise Line then. Was this, we were talking beforehand, this is your third cruise. Mm-hmm. What does Disney Cruise Line do as far as availability online or getting that type of information before you leave? Do they have very many good resources, or do you have that on your blog site as well?
Yeah, I would definitely say, and Christy was definitely, the last couple cruises I've done, been a good resource too, because I don't think Disney Cruise Line does quite as good of a job.
Christy, they feed us well.
They feed you well.
Yeah, so we'll definitely give that as a preface or whatever, they do feed us well, but they don't give information.
Yeah, I would say beforehand. So if you're like me or Christy and you're probably wanting to do a little bit of research before your trip or maybe find out some information, get some of those menus, it's a little bit trickier than it is for Disney World or even Disneyland, where that's a much more accessible. That being said, once you get on the ship, you are never going to have to worry about stuff. They take special dietary needs, food allergies, celiac disease super serious. And so I've always had lots of great stuff. But yeah, if you're a planner and you want a little bit more info, I definitely recommend checking out blogs like mine or Alexis's. She does a lot of cruising as well. Just if you want to see what might be an option. Many of us who have special diets and even just people who like food want to know, sort of what you're going to get to eat when you go on a trip. And so I think that can be a really good combination. But yeah, knowing that you are going to be set when you get on the cruise is definitely a good thing. They do take care of you.
What about people that might want to bring, and I think you kind of touched on our last show, Christy, about they had a change in security down at Port Canaveral. What about being able to bring your own food on? Do you guys know much about that? So if you're kind of worried about what might be available on board, if there's something special that you need or your kids need, what's the availability for that?
I have a nephew that has a eating disorder. That's not worded right, but he had issues with eating. And so there was only certain food that he would eat. And actually we notified or talked to Disney Cruise Line ahead of time for his particular need and could request the item that they needed for him. And I think it was 1 or 2 items, and they were able to check with their suppliers to see if they could get it. And this all had to occur months before the trip. And Disney wrote back to us, but they don't have commercial freezers or refrigerators. So you can only take on the ship what you could store on your own. So you can't really bring your own food unless it's like a snack or a granola bar. And then now we know that they're checking for open food when you're entering at the port. So if you had a bag of crackers or something, you would need to make sure that those are in a sealed container if they're in your carry-on. I don't know how long that will go on for, but that's at least an issue at the moment. When I cruise, and I don't know if you've ever done this, Sarah, so I'll be interested in your feedback. I bring my own gluten-free crackers for most of our cruises on Disney, well, on any ship. If I ever think I'm going to want cheese and crackers, and I just throw those in my suitcase, and then I can pull them out. Although one time on Disney, I was actually offered about midway through a cruise some gluten-free crackers. I'm wondering now if the chef actually got off in port and went and bought them, because all the rest of the cruises haven't offered them. But have you brought any of your own food on, Sarah?
I have not, and just because I figure Disney is so good at it, so I have not on the Disney cruises. That being said, on the cracker note, we got room service on our Castaway Cay day, and we actually ordered the cheese plate gluten-free, and I got gluten-free crackers with it.
You did?
Yeah, they were like, I think kind of like the Mary's Gone crackers, like some kind of more grainy. Brandon, my boyfriend, did not enjoy them, but he was like, these are definitely gluten-free. But yeah, they actually did offer some gluten-free crackers for that cheese plate. So maybe they've started to add a few of those things into, depending on the ship, depending on what ports of call they're doing. I don't know.
Nice.
So that was definitely an option.
So before we get into your specific cruise, Sarah, do you have any tips or tricks for somebody who's a first-time cruiser, either with Disney or some of the other cruise lines, before we go into your specific cruise?
Yeah, so, and Christy, you can chime in too, but some of the things that I would definitely make sure, number one, of course, make sure you note that on your reservation before you go, so that they're aware of that before you're even on the ship. For us, my boyfriend is allergic to fish and shellfish, and I have celiac disease, so we wanted to make sure both of those things were noted on our reservation. And then I like to do a little bit of pre-trip research. So definitely, if you are interested, do that research, look at blogs and things before you go. The other thing that you can do when you get on the ship, and I think, Christy, you've done this too. Actually, you're the one that kind of was telling me about this, was they have what they call a dining session sort of on embarkation day. So you can go to whatever location has that listed on your navigator, and you can go talk to somebody. We happen to have Royal Palace on our first night on embarkation for dinner, and Christy had told me, hey, did you know that you could get the fried brie gluten-free? And so we went to this dining session. I talked to somebody. They made a note on my reservation, and then I was able to get it that night. versus walking into the dining room and trying to order something like that on the fly just definitely doesn't work on a cruise ship. Just because the amount of things that they're making, yeah, they can do a few modifications, but if you wanted something really specific like that, that does need a little bit of advance notice. So I would definitely take advantage of a dining session if that's something that's important to you too. So those would be a few things that I would think would be good to know before you go on the cruise.
I didn't even think to do it at a dining session. I just went to lunch and then told them.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, we ended up not doing it at lunch. We were thinking about it, but our servers were definitely in a hurry during embarkation lunch and kind of rushing around. So I was like, let's just go to the dining session and we'll do it right there instead. And that ended up working pretty well. So.
Oh yeah, my people looked at me like I had 4 eyes, but yeah. I committed. I was like, I am not eating duck, and so I'm putting duck.
Yeah.
Did you eat duck?
I did not eat duck, and that's actually what I told them. I was like, yeah, I really don't want duck 3 ways from every course. And I ordered the Chateaubriand, which is the steak that they have that night for dinner, also gluten-free too, which was nice. So they were like, you just probably will get it with that one sauce. And I was surprised because I thought they would give me a bit of a hard time with the gluten-free brie. And they were like, we don't know if it's going to be possible, but we'll put it in. And then when I got to dinner that night at Royal Palace, they were like, oh, yeah, we have it coming for you. So it was easy. Yeah, it was awesome.
And so for the people that don't know, at is it Royal Palace?
Royal Palace on the Dream.
Royal Palace. So for people that don't know, for the whatever their main menu is at Royal Palace, so on the 3-night or the 4-night cruises, they serve duck is their gluten-free option for like your appetizer, for your main course, and like somewhere else there was a duck option, like a salad or something with whatever it was. It was, like you said, 3 courses of duck. And so they can easily make that gluten-free because it's noted in the menu. But if you're not going to eat duck for 3 courses, you need to pre-order that.
Which I highly recommend doing. It was worth it.
Before we jump into a cruise, any other things before leaving on the cruise that people can do?
I don't think so. I think, again, just doing as much research as you can, as much as you want to. You know, some people really like to do a lot of pre-trip research and look at stuff, and some people are good with just kind of going and finding out. So, yeah, that would be my biggest tip, is do what works best for you. And if you want to do that research, go for it.
Well, since you escaped the winters of Michigan, Sarah, and have moved down to Florida, you guys get the opportunity for the Florida residency rates. You said this is your 3rd cruise on the Dream. How did you guys book it? Do you guys take advantage of that, or do you book well ahead of time, or how do you guys kind of attack that?
Well, lately we have been very last minute. So we ended up booking, we did a cruise in May. We just did the one in October. Both of those were 3 nights on the Dream. So we booked both of them pretty last minute. One was we booked it in February for the May. This one was a little bit ahead. We had booked a cruise for January, ended up switching. I'm having surgery next week, actually. And so I wanted to make sure that we were able to go on the cruise before my surgery because I didn't know how much my recovery was going to be, how long that was going to take. So we've done kind of last minute. That one felt very last minute because even though we booked it ahead of time, we switched that date. So we haven't had the best luck with Florida resident rates this year, just because I think of the specific dates we wanted to go. We're a little bit busier. The one that we went on in May did have a Florida resident rate, but it wasn't for the category that we wanted. So we ended up just opting not to do that. So we always keep an eye on the Florida resident rates, and we're hoping to get one this coming May, but we kind of just book last minute. So we kind of know going in it's going to be a little bit more expensive, and we kind of pick what we want. So we probably do it totally the opposite of what most people do with cruising, but it works for us. My boyfriend works in law enforcement, and he works night shift on top of that. So for us, timing is always a challenge, making sure that we can get time off for him. So we're kind of like, well, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So Florida resident rate doesn't make or break our decision to book something. It's something that's just a nice added perk if we can score it if we book a cruise, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know about you, Christy, but I would love to be able to have that option to be living down in Florida and, be able to jump on whenever you can, when it kind of fits into your schedule rather than having to plan so far out sometimes.
Yeah, we're definitely lucky with that. And that's, we always say like the Orlando area is perfect because we have Disney World. And then of course we have easy access to the cruise ports because it's about an hour for us. And then of course easy to get on a plane and hop over to any place else we want to go. So we're definitely lucky with that.
Perfect. Well, before we talk about the restaurants themselves, what type of cabin do you guys like to book usually?
We are definitely big fans of the veranda. So we usually get the deluxe veranda view. I have done the inside stateroom once. It was just a little too claustrophobic for me. I kind of need a window or something I love the little magical porthole. I thought it was super cute, but for me, I definitely like having some of the natural sunlight in. And so the cruise that we did in May was Brandon's first cruise. It was my second. And so he really wanted to do the veranda. We tried it. We were like, well, we can't go back now after this. And we're like, we picked a veranda view. This is going to be our favorite from now on. So I have a feeling once we do something like concierge, we'll be hard pressed to switch from that too. So we're a little afraid to make that jump. But we do like the veranda.
It is possible to switch back. Even possible to go to an ocean view. Yeah. I did that.
We definitely like the veranda, at least for the Caribbean side, just because we like to sit out on it. We like to take advantage of the veranda a lot. And I know for those people who, not sitting on the veranda is not their thing. I wouldn't recommend it if they're not going to use it, but we do like to utilize it a lot. So that's one of the reasons we pick it. If we were to do another cruise, we might go with an ocean view, depending on the length or the destination, like Alaska, which we really want to do.
No, you need a.
Think so?
Alaska.
Oh, see,
even more than the Caribbean, in my opinion.
Interesting. Okay, I will definitely make sure we do that then.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to go back once you get that veranda or concierge, right, Christy? Yeah.
You can do it. I'm just telling people you can.
That's true.
Standing in line is the worst part. I won't lie. Or the idea of standing in line, going from concierge to non-concierge.
Yeah, not being that VIP as they usher you on. Okay, well, let's talk about the food on board. Once you guys get on the Dream, where do you guys kind of gravitate towards? Do you guys like to go up to Cabanas, or do you go to the sit-down, or what do you guys like to do, Sarah?
We definitely like to do the sit-down, and that's just because it's a little bit easier for me with special dietary needs. I've done Cabanas a bunch of times, and I like that. It just takes a little bit of time, and so that is the big thing for me with Cabanas. Like, the last cruise in May we went to Cabanas one morning and just wanted to get some like gluten-free donuts and something easy going that we could take back with us to the veranda. And it legit took between 30 and 40 minutes to get donuts. So I was like, oh my gosh, this just took way too much time. So for us, we do like the restaurants because it's a little bit low key and I feel like it's a lot less stressful and wait times for me for food. So on this trip, we definitely did that. I was surprised because on the Dream in May, the embarkation lunch for the sit-down restaurant was in Enchanted Garden. And when we went on this one in October, it was changed to Animator's Palette. So that was just a new switch for us to have this time, which was nice.
I just want to point out to listeners that I mentioned your website is gluten-free and dairy-free, but you are no longer dairy-free all the time, right?
Correct. Yeah. I reintroduced dairy back into my diet a couple of years ago, which has been a really nice thing for me personally. I do still eat dairy-free a lot, and I will always note on reviews dairy-free options or dairy-free alternatives for people, and note when I have something that does contain dairy. So some of my things will not be dairy-free anymore.
Like the brie.
Like the brie, yes. But like I said, I do try to make sure that when I have a review, I make those notations in. If I know something's dairy-free, and there's certain things like ice cream that I just still, even after being dairy-free, for 6 years and reintroducing it, I still don't really do. So I'll still go for the dairy-free versions of stuff, and I always note that too. But yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Yes, I do. I have defected back into dairy.
Well, welcome back.
Yes.
So let's talk about Cabanas real quick. Is there anything that you need to do ahead of time to let them know as far as dietary needs, or do they have a special section in the buffet itself where they have stuff, or how does that work?
They don't have a special section. What I have done, and Chris, you can of course chime in too, what I've done is I've just grabbed someone when I get there. I'll look for a head server or someone who looks like they might be a little free that's working there, that's a cast member, and just say, hey, I have a special dietary need. Is it possible to talk to a chef or a head server to just kind of figure out what things I might be able to eat? And that's worked best for me. Sometimes a chef will come out and talk and sort of walk me through the buffet, make me some things in the back, just because that's safer. So if you have a special dietary need like celiac disease, cross-contamination is an issue. So I have to be careful making sure that certain things that contain gluten don't touch the things that are gluten-free. Otherwise, I could get really sick. So a chef will make some things in the back that might be a higher risk for me. And then sometimes what will happen with a head server is they'll say, okay, what do you want? We'll go take it back to the chefs, and then we'll make you a plate of things. So I haven't really felt the need to do any pre-ordering. That being said, on this cruise, my servers at the regular rotational dining were super keen on having me pre-order as much as possible, and that included going to Cabanas, which I think if you do pre-order does help a little bit with the time constraints with having to wait a bit. We didn't end up taking advantage of that, but that was definitely an option that they presented this trip, which was nice.
It doesn't help.
Okay, well, there we go.
Because I've done it. I've even said I'll be here at 7:15 or something along those lines. None of that makes a difference. They sort of don't fire up your food until you get there and tell them. So it has never made a difference.
So if you go to Cabanas, totally possible to get food as you walk in or pre-order. But I think the big thing, knowing that going into Cabanas, is that there is going to be a wait, regardless. You're going to wait.
Nothing is fast. Even as you said,
no.
The donuts that are coming out of a package in the back still aren't fast. I don't know. Yeah.
It's safe, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate. But yes, you are going to be waiting a bit.
So on board the Dream, they have Animator's Palette, Enchanted Garden, Royal Palace. Do you have any thoughts on either one of those restaurants? Is there one that you guys like better than the other before we talk about the specialty restaurants?
Yeah, well, on the rotational dining, I think for us, we were surprised because I assumed the Animator's Palette would be the restaurant that we love the most, and we really enjoyed the theming. Uh-huh. I think overall we thought the food for us was the best at Royal Palace, but then we also really liked the food at Enchanted Garden. That was the one that surprised us, that the two of us thought, we don't know. We're not really that enthused by the menu. It looks okay. And then we got there, we got the dishes, and we were like, okay, we actually like this a lot. And in fact, on this trip, we didn't end up eating at Enchanted Garden. We had dinner reservations at Paolo that night. But when I went to Animator's Palette, I actually ordered the chicken dish from Enchanted Garden instead of the regular menu at Animator's Palette because I liked the chicken dish there better than the gluten-free chicken dish that was the option at Animator's Palette. So
I never remember to do that.
Yeah, it's a great tip. I don't remember if it was you all that mentioned it or where I heard it, but I was like, I'm going to try it this time. And it worked, and it was great.
So, Christy, for those who haven't done that before, why don't you explain how you can do that?
Well, so you pre-order your food for the next night's dinner, either with your head waiter, who's really in charge of it, or your waiter, depending on whoever's taking your order that day. And so you have to already pick which food you're going to eat. And with Disney, the allergy kitchens are actually, I believe, all the same. And so they can get any of the food for you. And they're making it somewhere anyway. So for an allergy order, which is what they just generally refer to any food restriction as just an allergy order. So for any allergy order, you can order, which again, I forget every time, but off of any of the menus that are going on that night in the other restaurants.
And you would find those menus generally on the app these days, right?
Yes, or they're in front of the restaurants, but you have to know the night before. You can get them from your server.
Okay.
And just know, so there is websites like Sarah's and Alexis that we mentioned, but I always go to Scott, his Disney Cruise Line blog, to look up the menus. And they're just the regular menus for everybody, and they can modify most dishes to be gluten-free. So if they have that 24-hour notice.
Mm-hmm. So then that's what I do too. It's a nice way to get that taken care of. And like I said, on this trip, my the trip we went on in May, we asked the servers and the head server, hey, do you want us to pre-order anything? Because I know that, again, you can sometimes get some things that are not listed as gluten-free as options. They were like, no, you should be fine. And then, of course, things couldn't be modified. And this time they were like, no, let's make sure we do that pre-ordering for you. And so, yeah, I looked ahead of time before the cruise on Scott's blog as well. And then also checked the app when we got there just to make sure. And then they were willing to bring me the menus for things like breakfast and lunch too, so that I could pre-order those things. The other thing that you can do in the main dining rooms, and I don't know if you all have talked about this before, I actually got Indian food on this trip, which was pretty awesome. So I'm a big fan of Indian food and Thai food and all sorts of ethnic different things. And most of them are pretty gluten-free friendly. And on the last trip we did in May, we noticed, I had heard that you could order Indian food. And so I was like, no, that's weird. I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to do it. And sure enough, the table next to us one night actually had Indian food. And I was like, no, I knew it. So I asked our server, like, oh yeah, if you tell us, we can number one, check with the chefs and ensure that it is okay for your special dietary need. And then we can make you a plate of Indian food. So I did it that time. And then I did it on this cruise as well. And on this cruise, they actually said they rotate it with different menu options every single night. So if you like Indian food and maybe you're vegetarian or vegan, they might have some different options for you depending on the night. But you could pre-order that too, and they would double check and make sure that it was okay for your special dietary need, which was pretty awesome.
Well, let's head upstairs to Palo. That's one of my favorite restaurants. My wife and I love going up there. We haven't done Remy yet. But what about Palo, Sarah? Is that something that you need to order ahead of time as well? Or can you let them know once you get up there? Or how did that work?
So again, as long as it's on your reservation, you're pretty good to go. So I typically do not pre-order anything when I go to Palo or Remy. I've been to both of those. We've just walked up, and in fact, they usually are they're pretty open. They're like, you don't need to order everything that's done in Palo, and Remy is basically prepared like it would be in a normal kitchen if you were going to a regular restaurant on land. And so they're much more flexible about doing things on the fly, making modifications and doing custom dishes. And I've definitely had that. We've had Palo dinner twice now. We've done Remy once, or I've done Remy dinner twice, and then Palo brunch once. So we've run the gamut of all of those. And this time was the only time that I actually pre-ordered anything. Alexis from Alexis's Gluten-Free Adventures had mentioned that you can get the calamari gluten-free fried. And so I pre-ordered that and was able to get that fried, which was kind of cool. But otherwise, they said I didn't need to pre-order. They do the chocolate souffle there. That can be made gluten-free. I didn't have to pre-order that.
And I thought we did have to pre-order that. I was always told, but I always just pre-ordered it.
I think you used to have to pre-order it, and now I think they can do it more on the fly. That seemed to be what they were saying to me on this trip, but it's always, if there's something special you really want on a menu, it's worth checking with the dining session or trying to talk to your servers before you even go to Palo to see if you can get something.
Okay.
We've had our head server call before.
Oh, that's a good.
So, he'll be at our table.
That's awesome.
And then we'll say, yeah, we're going to Palo, and I just want to make sure I can get the chocolate souffle gluten-free. So he'll just, pick up the phone and call up there and say, so-and-so's coming on such and such day.
That's awesome. Yeah, and the Mickey waffles for the brunch, too. I heard you had to pre-order. They were like, nope, you don't. I was like, okay, great. But, yeah, just making sure you communicate. So if there is something you really, really want with a special diet, asking before, just in case, so you don't get disappointed. But by and large, my experience has been that they're pretty good at making most things modified or on the fly, which is great.
So bear with me just a little bit here. I'm trying to keep up with two Michigan girls and how fast you guys are moving along here. But when you say pre-order, that's once you get on the ship, calling them up at Palo or stopping in, or is that what you mean? Okay. So it's not before you leave on the cruise. It's like once you're on board, before your dinner up in Palo, you can stop in or call up to them.
Right. And that's mostly what will happen on the ship. So the pre-ordering is something that they'll do once you get on the ship, just to make sure that you get modified food that you'd like, or something that, they couldn't do normally gluten-free. They might be able to make that modification with some advance notice. So
like duck. If you don't want duck, then boil
duck.
Well, see,
I don't know the Royal Restaurant. I don't know why I can't remember why it's called. They're all different.
Yeah, and if you're one of those people that, hey, you don't want to fuss with things, the great part about pretty much all of the rotational dining and the breakfast and the lunch menus will have things marked GF if it's gluten-free. So if it's straight gluten-free without any modifications or need to pre-order, it's listed right there on the menu. So you could just go to dinner one night to, say, Animator's Palette and say, oh, I want the duck or I want this chicken dish, and it'll say gluten-free on it, and that's easy peasy. So you could just kind of walk in, order, and no worries.
Although I still won't eat off my husband's plate in that scenario unless we've noted that it's for me to consume as well.
Definitely.
Because even if it can be or it's notated that it's potentially gluten-free, I won't take that risk. So just something for people to think about. I won't take the risk because it's, a very unpleasant experience if I do get glutened.
Yeah, we definitely do the same thing too. Sometimes if we get something that is at regular Disney World that could be gluten-free, if we don't order it as a special diet, I won't take a sample of it from Brandon's dish because we just don't want to take that risk. But yeah, just make sure you do note those things. But yeah, you don't have to pre-order things if you don't want to.
I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to get my escargot from Lumiere's on the Fantasy when we go in a couple weeks.
So just get it. It'll be on the menu somewhere.
Okay.
You can ask your server.
Okay.
I know you hate to be fussed with, but I'm telling you, ask your server what night it's in the rest of the restaurants, and then they'll just get it for you.
So they don't have to send it from the Magic over to the Fantasy so that I can have it, right? They're gonna have it.
They have it on the ship.
I'm just messing with you guys. Okay.
Well, the good thing is when you do have a special dietary need, you get pretty used to asking for stuff all the time. So we always end up with, I think, some of the fun special and hack type menu things that you wouldn't think about. So sometimes it's good to go with someone who has a special diet because we know some of the secrets.
That is true.
We do.
Our meals take 70 years longer, but we know.
It's true. That's right.
Well, that's just a good tip with Disney Cruise Line and probably most cruise lines in general is, don't be afraid to ask because, ask for the world. They can only tell you no. So,
yep, exactly.
There you go. Anything else about Palo you want to talk about before we talk about the actual cruise itself or some of the activities?
I think just overall, both of them are great options, especially if you don't want to have duck or chicken or, the rotational dining menus are not necessarily speaking to you. I think the adult dining is a great option. Even if you don't have a special diet, I think it's just a nice treat. We love Palo. Remy's super special. We love that. But those are nice to add into at least one night of your cruise, especially if you're doing a little bit of a longer one. I think it's always a great option to do.
Well, we didn't talk about this, but this was a Halloween on the High Seas cruise. Had you been on one of those before?
I had actually gone on one in 2014. That was my first Disney cruise, was a Halloween on the High Seas.
Okay. And now we just talked about Halloween on the High Seas with Frank, so we kind of got a little bit of a touch of it. So you went in 2014, and he said this year things were a little bit different. Did you notice some differences in what they did and some of the activities maybe that they had on board?
I don't know if I noticed any major differences, but it's also been 4 years, and so I don't know that I completely remembered how everything was done at that
I didn't mean to put you on the spot that way.
No, but I think I just totally didn't remember. This time I will say I think it seemed like there were more activities and a little bit more Halloween this time. But it could have also been because the last time I went with my mom, and she was super not into doing that kind of stuff. So this time we were looking for more of the Halloween activities and things. So
did you dress up?
We did not. We had our piratey stuff for Pirate Night. We just wore our bandanas. So we were boring. But we met up with one of my other blog readers, and they dressed up as Mary Poppins and Bert, and they won a costume contest. They had amazing costumes. So it was great to see some of the other folks on the cruise dressed up for the adults. It was neat.
The costume contest is at night. What did you guys do during the day for Halloween Day? Did you guys take in any of the activities then? Did you go see the tree, I guess, when they did that part? Because that sounds like a lot of fun to me.
We did go see the tree. I recommend people go very early for the tree because it was super jammed. We had dinner right before, and so we had the early dinner, and we got there pretty close to when they were starting, and we had to go up, I think maybe to deck 5 to try to get a good view, which is not a good view at that point if you're up on that high. it was definitely very full. So I would recommend if people want to go early. It's definitely worth it. It was super fun and charming. So we enjoyed it. I just wish we would have had a little bit better vantage point to see it. So that was definitely one that I would recommend. The other things that we did were character photos. We're not necessarily the hugest character people when it comes to getting photos, but we saw all their Halloween costumes. I was like, yeah, we're going to have to get some photos of these because they're so cute. So we ended up waiting in line. We did that throughout the day. We just kind of look at the app for the Times Guide to see some of the different character photos. But we did Donald Duck and Chip and Dale, which was super fun. They had really cute costumes, so we did that as well. It also happened to be the day that we had passes to the Rainforest Room, so we were kind of like, do some relaxation, then we'll go do some Halloween stuff, and we'll do some more relaxation, then some more Halloween stuff. So a shorter cruise means you pack a lot more things in, and so we were really trying to relax and also get to experience things. So we didn't get it all in, but we definitely got to enjoy some of the Halloween stuff.
Did you pre-book the rainforest passes prior to the cruise?
Yes, we did, and I think that is such a great tip for people to do because it was literally half the price. Yeah, we paid $16 to book the Rainforest Room, and I think it was like close to $30 on board the ship. So for one day pass. So I would definitely recommend if someone is interested in the Rainforest Room, pre-book that ahead of time. It's a little difficult to find on the website. It's under like gifts and amenities, and I ended up calling someone instead of they had a form that you could fax, and I was like, nobody does that. So ended up, I was like, why are we doing that? So I called them and was able to book that. And that was a great tip to do ahead of time. So we definitely did that.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird spot. I've never understood why that's underneath the gift thing too. And like you said, fill out your form and fax it in. And
yeah, it was so weird.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because when we got to the room, we got these cards that it was like, Sarah, please enjoy this gift from Sarah. Oh, yeah, I gifted myself Rainforest Room pass. That's great. So I was like, oh, that's charming.
I don't know if we've really talked about it, but can you talk about what the Rainforest Room is and what you kind of experience?
Yeah, so it's a part of the Senses Spa. So the Senses Spa area has a variety of services and amenities. Of course, things like your traditional massages, facials, all that kind of stuff. Then, of course, there's the gym. The gym is open to anyone who's on the cruise. And then they have this spot called the Rainforest Room, and that is, you can do a one-day pass. You can also do a pass that's for your entire length of your cruise as well. We had never done it before, so we did just one day, wanted to try it out. It includes sort of hot tubs. It has these really amazing stone heated chairs that you can sort of lounge on. They have all these really cool showers that have different scents and sounds and lights in them that are really neat. There's several different kinds of saunas. So these are all different things that with your pass you can go in and take advantage of. It's a co-ed area, so of course it's everybody kind of enjoying, but it's a really nice, quiet, relaxing space. So if the goal of your cruise is to have a little bit of relaxation, this can be a really nice option. And it has great views of the ocean too. So we really enjoyed that.
Yeah, sounds like a perfect thing for a sea day as you're kind of cruising along to take advantage of that. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe, do they, I wonder if the pricing is a little bit different. I know the spa sometimes when you're in port is a little bit cheaper than on sea days, but.
Did you have to say what day you were going to use it, or you just buy a pass?
You just buy a pass, and then we just picked the day. We ended up picking our day for Nassau. It's just not our jam. We've been there enough times. We're like, we'll just stay on the ship. So we actually got off the ship for about 30 minutes to get our passport stamped, which you can do in Nassau if you go to the right government building. So we did that. We came back on the ship, and then we just enjoyed the Rainforest Room and just relaxing for the rest of the day. We did the Rainforest Room sort of during the daytime, and then we also did it in the evening time. It's open till 10 p.m. on the Dream right now when we were on the cruise. So we did it that night, like at 8 o'clock, which was great. And it was nice and dark. And that was just brought a different sort of relaxation. And if you're in those lounger chairs, they actually have these murals on top that looks like clouds and stars. And so it changes from day to night. So that was kind of cool too. So I definitely recommend that if you're into relaxing.
What other entertainment things did you guys do while you were on board then? Did you take in any of the adult entertainment at night, or did you go to the shows?
We did not do any of the shows this time. We did our last cruise. Because we were kind of looking to be more relaxed, we were like, we'll just sort of pass on the shows this time. A 3-day cruise goes by so fast, and so we really just wanted to kind of chill and not have to feel rushed. We did do some of the adult stuff, so we did go to some of the lounges. We really love Skyline Lounge. That's one of our favorites, and so we'll tend to go there in the evening time, just have a drink. We also love Cove Cafe. One night we went there and just had a couple of drinks, and Brandon got a plate of antipasti. So if you go to Cove Cafe, they'll have a variety of snacks during the evening time. It's usually kind of what you would get at Paolo's, so olives and prosciutto and cheeses and different things. And so he grabbed a plate of that as well, and so we just kind of relaxed and chilled there. But we like to just kind of go to those lounges and listen to some music, not do anything too crazy. Meridian's another lounge that we also like a lot too. So that's another one that we think is always kind of great. We always go there before either Paolo or Remy for dinner. That's always a must.
I have one random question. Was the Beauty and the Beast held one night or two?
It was held one night. It was 2 in May and 1 in October.
They're just moving back and forth, I think, on that.
Yeah, they brought back the golden Mickeys. And I'd seen that before, and I was like, I'm good without seeing the golden Mickeys. Lovely, but not for us this time. So, yeah, just one time.
Is the Cove Cafe outside? I mean, it's inside, I know that, but where you can walk outside. I'm trying to find it on the Dream where it's at. So I've only been on the 2 smaller ships.
Mm-hmm.
It's by the adult only area in the front. Mm-hmm. So there is it's like right where the adults only area is. So there's outside just because you're in that Cove adults only area.
That's like my wife and I's favorite place to go on the classic ships after dinner, after the kids take off and they're kind of playing around. Just to be outside, have a glass of wine or something like that. It's a kind of a cool place to chill out for a little bit before you get to do something else.
And and they do have some outdoor seating there too. At least on the Dream they do. They have a little bit of outdoor seating, not a lot, but just a little bit. But it's close to the pool.
Well, awesome. So this cruise, you guys go to NASA the first day. We already talked about NASA, and then your second day is in Castaway Cay. Talk a little bit about Castaway Cay. What do you guys like to do there? Since this is your third time there?
Yes, third time. Serenity Bay, Serenity Bay, Serenity Bay. That is all there needs to be said about it. We love relaxing at Serenity Bay. That is it's such a great spot just to relax, chill. We love the little bar there, so we'll go sometimes to get a drink there, just kind of relax, just take it easy. Now, this time, I will say we did not take it easy in the morning because my boyfriend really wanted to do the Castaway Cay 5K. So we did for the very first time. So that was a very busy morning. So we did the Castaway Cay 5K. It was great. Of course, then we were both completely tired. So it was perfect for Serenity Bay at that point because we both really just wanted to lay and chill. But yeah, that's pretty much the big thing we like to do is just relax on the beach. I have done some of the, sort of the water things like the little paddle boats and stuff like that. We actually talked about doing that the next time we go on our cruise and stop at Castaway Cay. But by and large, our biggest thing for Castaway Cay is just relaxing on Serenity Bay. We're kind of boring, but we like it.
There's paddle boats?
I don't know if they still have them. They had them when I went in 2014. Now they've got these like kind of like bikes. They're like paddle bikes. Like you go, it's close to the ship, but they're these like water bikes that you can go on. They're like with big giant wheels. And then they have little catamarans that are out there too. So we were talking about doing those the next time. I'm not sure how much they're charging for them at this time. I know they do have an extra fee, but they do have some little, type water sport things that you can do that you don't have to pre-book. You can just grab.
That would be an active part of the beach, though. I'm not on that part either.
Yeah, yeah. My mom and I did these like paddle boats, which the last time we just kind of paddled along, but we were really close to the ship, and that's where some of the ones are that we saw this last time. And I think it was a pretty nominal fee. You rent them for like 30 minutes to an hour. So if you like to, get a little sun and work up some stuff, you can do that too. But for us, yes, it's definitely Serenity Bay.
Well, since we've been talking about food, talk about a little bit about the food at Serenity Bay as far as somebody with food allergies, maybe.
Definitely, that was a challenge. So the first time I went on a cruise, we ended up going to Cookies Barbecue, which is what we did on this one. The previous time when we went in May, we did go to Serenity Bay Barbecue. And I just asked, just like I would any other kind of buffet, hey, I have a special dietary need. Can someone walk through with me, tell me sort of what might be safe? And it was pretty challenging. They really were dissuading me from eating there. They recommended I go to Cookies just to get some options. I ended up getting a cheeseburger with no bun and a piece of fish and some chicken is what we sort of were able to figure out might be safe. They were really, really discouraging me just because it is a smaller space. So the Serenity Bay Barbecue is smaller, has less options versus Cookies, which is typically where they want to funnel in anyone who has any kind of special dietary need, because they do typically encourage you to do that pre-order, which I didn't on that trip. This time we did do Cookies Barbecue. I pre-ordered because my servers recommended that the night before dinner. And so they asked me what I wanted. When we went to Cookies, I just checked in. There was a little spot. I checked in, said, hey, I pre-ordered some food. And they said, great. What's your name? What's your stateroom? Okay, we've got it. Here's a number placard. Go take it to whatever table you're sitting at, and we will bring you your food, which is what ended up happening. So you can make it work at Serenity Bay in terms of special dietary needs. If you have something that's maybe one, like so say if you have celiac disease or maybe fish or shellfish is an allergy, you can make that work. But I think if you have multiple special dietary needs, like lots of food allergies, I would definitely go to the main Cookies Barbecue if you're going to get food, because that just seemed like they're much more set up for it there in terms of safety and all that kind of stuff. So I was going to ask you, Christy, sort of what has your experience been? Have you done Serenity Bay Barbecue, or have you gone to
No.
Cookies? Okay.
No. I always have my kid. So I'm jealous.
Darn kids.
Yeah, right? I've gone back to the ship one time. I pre-ordered food that was not sort of maybe barbecue food, like French fries, I think, once, and just various things. And that food was very bland and horrible. So I would never do that again. Because I feel like they were concerned about every allergy, so they just made it tasteless. And I understand the reason they have to do that. They have probably a smaller kitchen, whatever. But then I decided, one time I didn't pre-order because the food was just so horrible. I'm like, I cannot do this. I'm going to just go get a hot dog and like some stuff. And I had him get it for me in the back, and this was at Cookies too. That experience took a while, and it ended up being okay. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, though, because I got scared after watching them with just their handling of, like, with the gloves and the buns and things like that. And I didn't get sick that day, so it worked out, but I wouldn't do that again. And most of the time I had been eating off at Cookies too, and like my food would just get there or something, but it was so much easier at Cookies 1, just going there and dealing with it. And now I order food that they serve that is gluten-free. So, like, I know the coleslaw is, when they have it, I guess, is gluten-free. The potato salad is gluten-free. The tomato salad, that tomato and onions or whatever, is gluten-free. Mm-hmm. I get hot dogs, and I ask for no buns, and I swear I get the buns they just give it to me, because the buns are way too big and thick and not good for me. So I get hot dogs, and then they have the Frito-Lay chips, so I'll eat those. Mm-hmm. I think that's my meal.
Yeah, sounds kind of similar to mine. And that's what I did when I pre-ordered this time. I was like, okay, what can I get that I know you serve at Cookies, because I do not want. And that happened on my first trip. We had friends who were also on the cruise, and they pre-ordered, and I was like, well, that looks gross. Like, they got like plain chicken, plain broccoli, and plain. I was like, that does not. But I would want barbecue. I was so glad I didn't pre-order that time. And so this time I was super specific. I'm like, I will pre-order if you want me to pre-order. But let's definitely make sure I get some food that you serve there, because I do not want plain chicken and plain broccoli. That does not sound yummy. So, and it worked out. It worked out. I think as long as you're really specific, that always seems to be the best too. Like if you're like, I want a cheeseburger with no bun, that usually works out okay.
Yeah, well, I said a hot dog with no bun, and I got 2 buns. So,
well, as long as they don't poison us, I take that as a victory.
No, right, exactly. As long as I'm not sick.
Right? Yep. It's like I can pick it off if I need to.
Well, perfect. Well, after Castaway Cay, unfortunately, you're back to Port Canaveral. The cruise comes to an end. Yeah. So as we kind of finish up the cruise part of it, any other things that we haven't talked about, Sarah or Christy, that we should throw out there for our listeners?
I'm trying to think of anything that was different this time. Oh, the one thing that I will say that was new for us on this trip is the cruise line is also no longer providing straws like they are at Disney World. So when we got on for embarkation lunch, we both noticed that we didn't have straws. And so we did ask about that. And they said, oh, yeah, we have paper straws if you want them. Like they do at the Animal Kingdom Lodge and Animal Kingdom. So they said, if you want paper straws, we can give those to you. But they really are only available upon request. Now, our servers, of course, got used to the fact that we did want the paper straws, and so we would get them every single night. But any other place that we went, if we wanted a paper straw, we would need to ask for that. So that was just something that I noticed that was transitioning on the ship that's definitely new from when we went in May.
I would buy their environmentally friendly concept or argument if they made other decisions that looked like was helpful to the environment.
Yeah.
That's my commentary on that.
You're coming down off your soapbox after that one? I'm just kidding. So I think straws are just kind of the hot button issue right now. So
yeah,
just out of curiosity then, am I, because we don't drink a lot of soda, so that, like the soda machines at the back of the ship or the soda machines, don't they have like tops with straws there? So, I mean, is that something that people should maybe bring their own cups now that they can drink out of, or are they turning the cups into kind of like a sippy cup, or does that make sense what I'm saying? For kids, I guess.
Yeah, they didn't have straws at the refillable like soda machine. They did have lids, and so it was more like a kind of like a sippy cup kind of situation. Yeah, so it was definitely more like that. We brought refillable mugs with us from Disney World, the ones that you can get from the resort. So we actually got some Halloween ones and brought them with us, and that worked out a little bit better for us because I don't really like the sippy cup style. And those worked out a little bit better. I would prefer the other ones with the lid. Still, works a little bit better for me. So I did love that they had Halloween on the High Sea themed cups that you could get. That's fun. Cool. Yeah, that was super fun. But yeah, if you are not into sippy cups, I would recommend bringing your own refillable mug if you want to go to those stations more often than not. So that'd be my tip.
That's kind of what I was going with that. I think it may be a little bit easier, especially for kids or people with little kids too. So where they don't have that straw. Yeah,
definitely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight, Sarah. We really appreciate it. You've provided a lot of information for our listeners. How can, why don't you just talk about where people can get a hold of you and where they can follow you on social media, as far as, are you on Twitter, Instagram, and your blog site?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm kind of all over the place. So my best recommendation for anyone that wants to go to my website, because I clearly did not plan the name appropriately when I started it 10 years ago, because
longest name ever.
The longest name ever. It's been a running joke for years. I'm like, well, I can't change it now. It's been around. But yeah, if you just type in gluten-free Disney or gluten-free and dairy-free Disney, you will find my website. It will come up right away in the Google. So that's my best recommendation. That will then get you to all of my social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So you can find me there too. I have a YouTube channel. Again, super complicated name. So just go to the website. It will get you all the links there. Maybe one day I will come up with a more user-friendly name, but I'm sticking with it for now. So yeah, just Google it, and that should get you to all of the stuff that you need.
Let me just say that she has a how-to video on how to make Tonga toast on her YouTube channel.
I do.
And I have not made it yet. I would never make it, but I have asked my husband to make it for me one day, and he will. We just haven't yet. It looks amazing.
It's so good. I never got to have the thrills of real Tonga toast, so it's really good in my mind. But yeah, it was super awesome that I got that recipe and was able to make it with some gluten-free sourdough bread. It's pretty tasty. So yes, sometimes I do like recipe recreations and stuff like that. So if you like fun stuff like that and you want to recreate something at home, definitely check it out.
Well, before we finish up, what's next for you guys, Sarah? Where are you guys cruising next? Are we going to be able to talk you into coming down to the Magic of Wonder? Or?
Oh, yes. So we have not decided yet. It's partially because, again, I have surgery coming up. So I didn't want to book anything because, again, we're weird and we don't cruise like we probably shouldn't plan in advance. But we're thinking about doing maybe a 5-day cruise on the Magic out of Miami in May. We're kind of eyeing one of those. So we're really hoping. I would love to go on one of the classic ships. So just to kind of see the difference between everything and to go to at least slightly different location. We really, really want to do Alaska, and we really want to do the Med as one of those, but those might be kind of dream ones. So I keep saying my 40th birthday's in another year and a half or so, and I'm like, ooh, maybe for that year we can do the Med or something fancy like that. So we'll see.
Thanks for coming on, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was super fun.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Sarah. I encourage everybody to go over to your website, your blog site. And I guess the last question is there a link on there if people have questions for you? They can shoot you some questions or just do that on Twitter or Facebook?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a contact form on the website. And then, of course, if you find me on social media, you can tweet me. You can post a message on Facebook. I always answer questions and try to get to them as quickly as I can. So I'm always happy to answer questions.
Well, perfect. And I'll make sure I put that in the show notes so you can click down on the show notes to access Sarah's blog as well. So once again, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We really appreciate it and wish you all the best in the holiday season. And when you come back from your cruise on the Magic, let us know, and we'd love to have you come back on.
Awesome. I would love that. Thanks so much.
Have a good night, Sarah.
You too.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Sarah for coming on and talking to Christy and I all about sailing with Disney Cruise Line with food allergies. Remember, you can always find Sarah over at her website, gluten-free, dairy-free, wdw.com, and I'll make sure that I put that link in the show notes. And from there, you can also find her on Twitter and Facebook. She's just a wealth of knowledge all about traveling either to Disney World, Disneyland, and especially on Disney Cruise Line with food allergies. Of course, Christy, our own Christy, is got a lot of information and knowledge on that as well, so you can always reach out to her as well at packyourpixiedust.com, packyourpixiedust on Twitter, or packyourpixiedust on Facebook. And she's got a lot of experience on all the different cruise lines and can answer a lot of your questions that you may have in regards to food allergies. Well, as we head into the holiday season, all of us here at the DCL podcast want to wish you the best if you're heading out on one of those very maritime cruises. I know it's just going to be a great time for you and your family as you head out there and share your experiences during the holiday season with DCL. If you would like to get a hold of myself, Steve, between now and our next show, you can reach me on Facebook at DCL Podcast and over on Twitter as well at DCL Podcast. And if you've been enjoying our shows, we sure would appreciate it if you know somebody else out there who would enjoy our shows as well. If you'd kind of pass it on to them, that helps us get the word out in the Disney and the cruising community and helps us grow our show and grow our community. So between now and our next show, if you're heading out on your next adventure, all of us here at the DCL Podcast would like to wish you fair winds and safe travels as you head out on that next vacation. Once again, thanks for coming back and taking a listen, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.